All right, today we're cracking open a redacted file on one of the CIA's most disturbing and, frankly, terrifying secret programs. We're talking about a real-life search for mind control that spiraled into paranoia, illegal experiments, and, quite possibly, murder.
So let's set the scene. It's the early hours of November 28, 1953. The night manager at New York's swanky Hotel Statler is faced with a situation so bizarre, so completely unbelievable, that it would stick with him for the rest of his life. The man who fell 10 floors to his death was Dr. Frank Olson, a top-tier U.S. Army scientist working on biological warfare. The official story? A tragic suicide. But his death was the loose thread that, when pulled, would unravel a secret the U.S. government desperately tried to keep hidden for over 2 decades. To really get what happened to Frank Olson, you have to go back in time, right to the absolute peak of Cold War paranoia in the early 1950s.
The CIA was completely obsessed. They were convinced that American prisoners of war in Korea were being brainwashed, that the Soviets and the Chinese had unlocked some secret to controlling the human mind. So naturally, they scrambled to catch up, kicking off their own dark and completely unethical quest for mind control.
And that quest got a name: Project MKUltra. It was officially greenlit on April 13, 1953. Now, the initial goal was supposedly to find a truth serum for interrogating spies, but that idea quickly ballooned into something much, much bigger and a whole lot scarier.
I mean, just look at this list of project goals. It reads like something out of a twisted science fiction movie, right? Mastering hypnosis, erasing memories, even figuring out how to make people act so bizarrely they'd be publicly discredited. And to get there, they used this horrifying mix of drugs, psychological torture, and sensory deprivation, all tested on unsuspecting American citizens.
And every dark project needs a leader. Enter Sidney Gottlieb. This guy was a chemist, known inside the agency as the poisoner-in-chief. Gottlieb was utterly convinced that his brand new psychedelic drug, LSD, was the master key to unlocking and controlling the human brain.
Gottlieb's obsession with LSD led to some of MKUltra's most infamous operations. And one of the most shocking of them all didn't happen in some sterile top-secret lab. Nope, it happened in a CIA-funded brothel in San Francisco. Get this, from 1955 to 1963, they ran a subproject with the unbelievable codename Operation Midnight Climax. They paid sex workers to bring their clients back to a safe house, dose the men's drinks with LSD without their knowledge, and then CIA agents would just sit back behind a one-way mirror, sipping martinis and taking notes. It's just insane. And the guy in charge of this whole operation? A man named George Hunter White, who was basically a walking, talking contradiction. This was a hard-nosed narcotics agent, famous for busting jazz legends like Billie Holiday for drug use. All the while, he was secretly running the CIA's illegal acid testing program. And did he feel any remorse? Not a chance. In a letter, he described the whole thing not as some grim duty, but as fun, fun, fun. The quote on the screen really says it all. He saw it as a license from the government to do whatever he wanted.
So you're probably wondering, what does a CIA-run brothel in San Francisco have to do with the death of scientist Frank Olson back in New York? Well, it all connects. Because before the CIA started testing these drugs on random men in brothels, they tested them on their own people.
Just 9 days before he died, Frank Olson became one of those guinea pigs. He was at a CIA work retreat when Sidney Gottlieb himself spiked a bottle of Cointreau with LSD. Olson drank it, having no idea what was happening. His mental state completely fell apart. He got home, told his wife he'd made a terrible mistake, and was then whisked off to New York by his CIA handlers for so-called treatment. Olson's death was a huge problem. It threatened to blow the lid off the entire MKUltra program. So the agency went into damage control fast. They leaned on medical examiners, they lied to the Olson family, and they sold the story that it was a simple suicide. And the cover-up worked so well that the project barely even paused before it was back up and running in the shadows.
And that secret stayed buried for 20 years. Then, in 1973, the Watergate scandal was exploding, and all these government intelligence agencies were suddenly under a microscope. The CIA director at the time, Richard Helms, he panicked. He gave one simple order: destroy every last file related to MKUltra. Erase it from history.
And he almost got away with it. But in a twist you couldn't make up, a simple clerical error saved the truth. See, a batch of documents, 20,000 pages worth, had been stored in the wrong place. They were in a financial records building, so they survived the purge. And when they were finally discovered in 1977, the whole thing came crashing out into the open.
The discovery, as you can imagine, sent absolute shockwaves across the country. And for Frank Olson's family, it was this horrible, gut-wrenching confirmation that their darkest suspicions had been right all along. It was finally a chance to reopen the case.
So in 1975, the government finally admitted its role in what happened to Olson. President Gerald Ford actually apologized to the family in person, and they got a financial settlement. But for Olson's sons, an apology and some money, it just wasn't enough. They knew there had to be more to the story. And in 1994, they had their father's body exhumed.
And that second autopsy revealed something truly chilling that the first one had somehow missed. The forensic team found a huge hematoma on his skull and serious trauma to his chest, injuries that almost certainly happened before he went out the window. The lead scientist's words were blunt. The evidence was rankly and starkly suggestive of homicide. The implication? Olson was likely knocked out and thrown to his death.
And this is the real haunting legacy of MKUltra, isn't it? We know Frank Olson's story because his family fought for decades. But he was just one of who knows how many victims. All those people dosed in San Francisco, the patients in mental hospitals, the prisoners. Their identities and the damage done to their lives were just lost to history, deliberately destroyed by the very people who hurt them.
So here's the point that should keep you up at night. The only reason we know any of this is because of a lucky mistake, a filing error. It just leaves you with one final, deeply disturbing question. We know what horrors were in the 20,000 pages that survived by accident. What in the world was in the hundreds of thousands of pages that they successfully managed to destroy?